Okay, here we go with a little bit of a tricky one here. This is the first time that you're being asked to change the numbers on a function. So basically what I mean by that is right now we have some variables here. So we've set the word gather to equal 3. So basically you can just think of gather as meaning 3, right? So when it says repeat gather times, it means repeat 3 times. So the way to read this is everything that's up here is just a function of setup for this section of the function. So we have repeat 3 times collect row, which makes sense. We wrote a little thing for collecting this row and this row and this row. So what we have here is when collect row is run, it's telling us to move forward 3 times because gather means 3. So that works perfectly. Move forward 3 times. 1, 2, 3. That puts us on this, and that's going to move into the get nectar, which is going to be repeated gather times, which is 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then make honey gather times, which is 3. So 3. Here, 1, 2, 3. Then we turn left and we go back to collecting another row. So, because we have to repeat the collecting rows 3 times. So we're going to go down and we're going to move gather times, which is 3. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and that puts us here. Unfortunately, that doesn't work because we missed the pollen here, or the nectar in this one. So what we need to do is we need to somehow change all of these from 3 times, which is up here, gather is equal to 3. We need to change those from 3 to 2, and then for the last column to 1. So to do that, some of you I'd seen were doing something like this. You were doing the math, right? You were going to do repeat repeat, and then say you did 3 minus 1, right? And you're thinking that's gonna work through each one. But the problem is that's gonna do the same thing each time. So what I mean is this is gonna do 3 minus 1, which is equal to 2. So that means it's actually not gonna collect, it's not gonna move far enough forward. So watch. So it just moves to there. We needed to remove 3 the first time, and then in the second row 2, and then in the third row 1. So to do that, we actually have to have our setup somewhere else. So watch. Let me get rid of this, put the gather back in here. And what we want to do is after each collect row, we want to put something in to change that. So we're going to change our set gather to. Move this out of the way. We're going to change our set gather. So now it's going to collect the row. After it's done collecting the row, it's going to change the gather to. And actually, this is where I kind of have to just show you this one. I don't like giving the answers, but I kind of have to in this. So what we have to do is we have to replace this with gather, and then I won't give you this part. Is it going to be gather plus 1, gather minus 1, gather times 1, or whatever? And what that'll do is, now think of it like this. It's repeating this 3 times. It's going to do collect row, which is repeating gather times, which is gather is equal to 3. And then it's going to go through that whole thing, repeating 3 times each. Then after it's done with collect row, this whole section, it's telling it to set gather to gather something here, and that's going to change what the program sees gather as. Hopefully that explains it for you. That's the basic setup. And you see what I'm getting at here. After it does each row, it's going to change the gather number. We set gather to 3 to start. The first time it's going to do collect row with the number 3 in all of the gather columns. Then we're going to change after it's done the gather to something else. That'll change the gather here, change the gather number here and here. And then once it goes through it again, we're going to set the gather to one more lower number. That should lead you pretty much to where you need to be. Let me know if you guys have any other questions.